Good evening viewers and welcome to the Art with World. Today we have a very fascinating subject to discuss, and that is role of storytelling in development of human beings and human civilization. And to discuss this subject we have a very distinguished guest with us, ZAFAR SYED, who is a novelist and a journalist. Thank you very much ZAFAR sir for joining our show today.
Thank you for having me.
How are you?
I'm fine.
Therefore, you are also a novelist and you yourself are a great storyteller. We'll discuss about different forms of stories, its evolution over time, and how it impacts human civilizations and human beings, their relationships with each other.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So let's start with how it came into being, how storytelling came into being. Was it a need of the people, or was it a way of whiling away the time, or some other reasons how it came into being?
Okay, so my contention is that we actually swim in an ocean of stories.
Okay.
We breathe stories. Stories actually have enabled us to be humans, and we won't be humans, and our civilization won't be at the level which it is without any stories. So if you think about it, you'll see that humans are the only animals who tell stories. Any other form of animals, no matter how intelligent they are, they don't have stories to that extent which humans have stories. And also, so far no tribe, no matter how primitive, has been found which does not tell stories, which does not deal in some kind of stories. So my contention is that stories have made us human. Stories have enabled our entire society, and stories are very powerful, and they are with us throughout our existence as Homo sapiens, as a species. And we again, to reiterate, we are humans only because of stories.
Well, I think we are humans even without telling stories, but stories have enabled us to gain more power, having power over other animals, and helped us develop in different forms.
Okay, so what I meant by saying that we are humans because of stories is that if we didn't have this powerful tool with us, we wouldn't have been able to survive throughout our existence. Because if you go back thousands of years when we were hunter-gatherers, we have to deal with a very inclement world. We didn't have any special abilities or special tools to deal with all the threats. There were so many predators and so many natural disasters and all kinds of hostile environment. So stories actually made us survive through that ordeal, through that thousands of years. Because stories gelled us into tribes, and later on, first of all families, and then tribes, and later on we developed agriculture, and then we gelled into towns and cities, and then whole civilizations. So I believe that without stories we wouldn't have been able to survive. So stories enabled us to survive, and maybe other forms of humans, like if you go back 100,000 years ago, you'll see that there were at least 4 different other kinds of humans. Homo neanderthals, and then Homo neanderthalensis, and then Homo naledi, and then Homo floresiensis, and other kinds of very similar to us. So I wonder if they too had this storytelling power, because stories kind of differentiated us, and stories like a grandma sitting around a bonfire, and children of the tribe, and even older people listening to the stories. So those stories actually enabled us to survive.
So when you say that stories enabled us to, enable families to unite, enabled tribes to unite and gel together, do you mean that stories created some common interests amongst them? They created some common enemies to whom against whom they had to defend their families and tribes, and some common goals which they had to achieve because they wanted to have a better life for their children, for families and tribes. I mean, would you please explain it further a bit?
Stories actually enable us to make sense of the world. So if you imagine from a point of view of a hunter-gatherer, you'll see that the world was extremely chaotic place. All kinds of events happening. There's lightning, there's thunder, there are animals, there are famines, disease, every kind of things, and you have no explanation for them. So how would you explain that suddenly some herd appears out of nowhere and then it goes away, and then somebody is hit by lightning? Why did it happen? And somebody suddenly passes away, like old people, they go away and suddenly they are unresponsive. They don't, even though their body is there and all their organs are intact, but they are no longer able to interact with other people. So what happened to them? What is death? What is life? And newborn children, how they actually come into being, and how do they become humans, and how do they grow, and they learn language. So many different things. So you have to make sense of all those phenomena around you, because even 100,000 years ago, humans had this full apparatus, this mental machinery. They had all the apparatus that we have today. So they had the tools, but how to use those tools to make sense of what's happening around them. So stories were invented. And so, okay, now we should actually define stories. What are stories? So stories are the way I like to define a story. It's extremely hard to do so effectively, but I'll try. Story is a kind of structured narrative. It could be one sentence long, or it could be 1,000 pages. Doesn't matter, but it's a structured narrative. Not if it's unstructured, then it's not a story, and it has a certain pattern. So there's some kind of beginning, and there's a middle, and there's end. And during this structured narrative, there's usually, not always, but I'm trying to generalize, because it's impossible to encompass all kinds of stories. So I'm trying to generalize. So there's usually an actor or a protagonist, and he is faced with some kind of obstacle, and he struggles to overcome that obstacle, and at the end he either achieves that goal or fails in his quest. So that's a story. So you will realize that it's not just a novel or a fancy kind of fiction. It's the way we deal with everybody. So if I come here and I tell you that, do you know what happened to me today when I was driving towards PTV? So that's the beginning of the story. The road was blocked, I had to go back. So that's the story. Jokes are stories. Gossip is a story. And interestingly, on gossip, there was a study conducted in some American university, and they found that more than 65% or 70% of our daily communication is actually gossip. And they found that even the PhD...
Ours is perhaps 90%.
So they found that even among professors at Ivy League universities, most of their conversation with each other is not about quantum mechanics or the Big Bang or the big questions of the universe. It's actually gossip. So that's the way we make sense of each other, and that's the way we make sense of the society. So that's the story. I'm not just talking about literary stories, but I'm also talking about the way we talk to each other, the way we deal with each other, the way we convey our point of view to each other. It's all in the form of stories. And if you expand it a little further, excuse me, you'll see that very good stories, like they have a very powerful and unexpected punchline. Without a punchline, the ending, a joke won't work. TV commercials, they're actually good stories because they actually tell a very nice story with all that kind of structure which I talked about. Movies are obviously stories. News, we call a news report a news story. It's actually called a news story. So news are stories. And then a painting, if you look at a painting, a good painting, it actually tells a story. A photograph, a good photographer takes a photograph, it tells you a story. So stories are all around us. Like I said, we swim in an ocean of stories.
Yeah, Harari also said that storytelling is a unique function of humans.
Yes, yes.
It's a cognitive function which create and imagines events, a chain of events which may not have direct link with reality.
Yeah, Harari is actually one of the persons in the last 10 or 15 years that has kind of propagated this idea of storytelling and how powerful is storytelling. So he's also a big influence on me, even though with some reservations, but he is a great storyteller himself.
Yeah.
So his story is that all human civilization is actually a kind of story. So for example, he says that fictions, he actually uses the word fictions. Fiction is something imagined. So if the whole society agrees on something, that becomes a reality. Like a nation, he actually gives a very good example of the breaking apart of the USSR in 1991 or 1992. So he said that some people said together, USSR is a huge geographical entity. It stretches along 2 continents, so it has 12 time zones. So it's a huge thing. But some people sat in a room in 1991 and they signed a document, just some ink, squiggle of ink on a paper, and this whole geographical entity, it just ceased to exist. So what is this? So this is a story, like a kind of fiction. USSR was a fiction. It was not a real thing. So
no, it was very much real thing. It was a huge continent,
no,
a part of a continent, huge country. I just want to dwell more on it. I want to hear more on
it was a real thing.
Yeah.
But it was actually agreed upon by some people that we believe in an idea of this nation or this huge country. And when they signed this document, it ceased to exist. Like there was no USSR anymore after the signature. It broke apart into several pieces. And he talks about like an organization like Microsoft or Apple or any big organization. So this is also a kind of imagined thing. So Apple does not exist in a single place, because even if that place is occupied by some rival organization or if America is invaded by some country and they take over the Microsoft or Apple headquarters, Microsoft won't cease to exist. Even they occupy and they confiscate all the machinery that they have, Microsoft is still there. But if a court orders that Microsoft is disbanded, just a signature by a judge, it will like vanish after the decision. Microsoft will vanish to exist. So it means that it's a kind of fiction. It's an imagined thing.
So that also means that stories, as you rightly said, I mean, imagine fiction, but still it has so much power that huge countries like USSR cease to exist.
Yes.
People manipulate it to gain power over other groups.
Yes.
And I mean, just by creating something which may not exist. So this is a very dark side of storytelling, isn't it?
Yes, yes, absolutely. And why is that? Because stories, if you tell a story, you are creating a story. But even the listener, who is listening or reading or watching your story, he or she actually becomes a part of that story. And whatever is told in the story actually is experienced by that listener. So there's a fascinating study where they put somebody who was watching a horror movie inside an fMRI machine, and when they checked their vitals, like their blood pressure was raised, their heartbeat was increased, and all their brain scan and all that stuff. So it was not if the horror movie was playing on a TV screen. The viewer was actually experiencing inside his or her own body. So it was actually passing over them. So that's the power of story. That stories transport you into another world, and they occupy you, they inhabit you. So that's the real power of the story. If you read a novel, a good novel, it entirely transports you, and you are oblivious of your surroundings. It takes you into another imagined world, and even though you know that it's imagined. So I don't know if you have the same experience, but when I watch some very powerful sentimental movies, my eyes well up. So sometimes it's embarrassing when there are other people around. Even though I fully know that the person is not killed, he's alive. I know him. like it's an old story, like a Dilip Kumar movie, like made in the 50s, and you know that he actually didn't die in the 50s. He lived until the 21st century. But still, it has so much power that you feel it, and you become depressed after watching a tragic movie or a tragic novel. I remember when I read Hunchback of the Notre Dame by Victor Hugo. It affected me for over a month. I was so much depressed. And you must have read about this Goethe's novel.
Sorrows of Young Werther.
Sorrows of Young. It was banned. It was banned because several people committed suicide after reading the novel. And
I think it must not have been purpose of Goethe to.
No, absolutely not. But I'm just emphasizing the power of the story. The story was so powerful that it impelled people to commit suicide. So how powerful is this? How powerful is the story? And again, this dark side of the story. Stories can transport you to another world, and they can amuse you, they can entertain you. But at the same time, stories can be used to manipulate you and to influence people into doing some unimaginable things which they wouldn't do otherwise.
Why do people like horror stories?
Okay, that's a good question. So we will have to go back a little to evolutionary origins of the story. So stories are like a life simulator. So if you are training to become a pilot, they won't give you the plane
right away.
The first day. They will take you to a flight simulator, and they will tell you the controls and how to actually fly a plane. And they will also, when you are a little experienced, when you are able to take off and fly at a certain altitude, then they will give you certain kind of variations, different kinds of weather, like extreme weather or day situation, night situation, different kinds of airports. so that you are able to fly a plane in all kinds of conditions. Stories actually enable us to simulate life. So that's why children are so much invested in stories, like old Dadi Amma or Nani Amma. So why she was the most cherished person in any household, because children actually love to listen to a good story. So why do they listen to story, and why they are attracted towards that story? Because that stories enable them or prepare them for adult life. The stories actually train them like to deal with different kinds of situations. So that's why evolution invested so much in our like they by default we are attracted towards stories, and especially tragic kind of stories or troubling stories or stories that have a negative side. Okay, so because if everything is good and like I gave you the example of the flight simulator, so everything is sunny and bright and you are trained on just that kind of simulator, you won't be actually able to fly the plane. There are so many variables in actual life, there are so many different situations. So it you won't become a good pilot by just flying the plane at the optimum conditions and everything is fine. Similarly, if there's a story which everything is goes according to plan, everything is perfect, like there was a king, he had 7 children, all children were very obedient, they were intelligent, beautiful, and then when the king died, the eldest became the next king. So it's an extremely boring story. Nobody will ever find any interest in this story. But if I tell you that a king had 3 children and one day suddenly the eldest disappeared, and then I piqued your interest, you will say that okay, what happened next? You will ask the you will be interested to know what happens, because this drama or this trauma, it grabs our attention and it's built in. It's a part and parcel of our psyche. So we are actually trouble seeking because troubles like even in daily life, it's something bad happens, it really piques your interest. I'll give you an example of a Russian newspaper. So one day, I think it was in the early 2000s, this Russian newspaper, one day their editors met and they actually decided that okay, enough of bad stories. So from tomorrow on, we'll tell only positive stories, not bad news stories. Like next week or next month, I don't exactly remember, but there was a huge snowstorm in Russia, and but they actually promised to tell only good stories. So they wrote that despite this huge storm, still like out of 100,000 houses, 500,000 houses still have electricity, and out of 500 roads, 20 roads are still open. So that kind of everything with a positive spin, and their audience fell by 2/3 within a month, because nobody likes all good stories. So you'll have to give them something bad, and this has been used by media. They have actually taken it to an extreme end. So in order to sensationalize and in order to dramatize it, so everything is a breaking news. So if you turn on the TV, you'll see that there's a breaking news every 5 minutes, because they want to grab your attention, because you have this apparatus, the mental apparatus, which is attuned to listening to bad things. And why it also makes evolutionary sense, because if something bad is happening, So and you know about it, so you can take measures to protect yourself. So that's why you are interested in listening to bad stories. So for example, like in ancient times, hunter-gatherers era, if there's a rustle in the bush, and there are two kinds of people. One is the one who thinks that it's just the wind rustling some leaves, and the other one thinks that, oh, it's a panther, run away. And what do you imagine who would survive to tell the story? So if it's really really the wind which has rustled the leaves and still you ran away, it won't change your life. Like okay, you wasted some calories, but otherwise you'll survive. But if the other way around is true, and it's you think it's just the leaves and it's actually a panther, then that person is gone. So that's why we are attuned to bad news, and we automatically assume for the worst, and that actually help us to actually survive, like in the example of panther. But today we are actually bombarded with bad news, and the news editors, I'm myself a news editor, so I know from the inside that we actually tend to sensationalize, and we tend to exaggerate. Otherwise, even a very simple story, we know that if we tell the story in a simple way, nobody will read it. But a simple story, if we exaggerate it, and if we like, you may have heard this expression, fear mongering. So news media is doing this fear mongering to gain the attention of people. They actually won't do it. They are not like they have actually thought about it. So they raise fear in people, because the more people are afraid, they'll click on your channel or your news story. They'll share it, they'll comment on it. So that's why it's such a dangerous tool.
Well, that makes sense. I mean, as you just told, that people want to hear things, which may not be very good otherwise, which may not be very pleasant otherwise.
Yes.
Maybe we are very much familiar with tragedies, with great tragedies written in art and literature, and they became very famous. And in news stories you have just told, but as far as news stories are concerned, I think there is a different trend as well in modern times, and that is to make good feelings. Even if you are talking about some tragedies or if catastrophe, my limited experience tells me that there will be some music behind it, in the background, and it would be kind of a part of entertainment, even if it's a bad story. From news, from different TV channels, I hardly see stories about poverty in the world, other bad things happening in the world, but mainly they talk about celebrities, famous people, good places,
Yes.
good tourist attractions, things like that. What are your views about that?
So like Shelley said that I don't exactly remember the quote, but the saddest stories are the best stories. So there are all kinds of stories. There are feel good stories too, but I think the most manipulative power is invested in the stories that are tragic or traumatic. Like a few years ago, there was a very unfortunate incident in Qusur. I think there's this minor girl was raped and killed, So you may have seen that the entire nation was focused for months on that story. This motorway rape case a few years ago, and you may have seen that the people come around, and it was talk of the whole nation for weeks. So,
but maybe it was just talk of the whole nation. Nobody came up. I mean, some concrete. No one suggested some concrete things to stop these things. There was no rage amongst people. There was no public gatherings against that.
no,
It was-
no.
yeah.
What I'm saying is that there are certainly happy ending stories and feel good stories, but the way those evil stories with evil characters and stories with the negative ending or negative bent, they have much more power over us. They have much more power to sway us than those feel good stories. There are feel good, so I'm not denying that there are
Okay.
not feel good stories, but they don't have that much power.
In a way, in modern times, I guess that the storytelling has, I mean, it had always been linked with power as well. But in modern times, it has risen many times. I mean, this media, powerful media, which is telling different stories all the time, that is also a way to control people's thoughts, their imaginations, the way they should act in certain situations, isn't it so?
Yeah,
And particularly social media as well.
social media. Yeah, social media is very important these days. So if you go back just 15 or 20 years ago, the most powerful news media organization in the world didn't have the power that a single person with a 5,000 rupees mobile phone has. Now, because this person is actually connected with the entire planet, so he or she can disseminate whatever he or she wants, any kind of story, any kind of sensational story, fake news. Like fake news has actually become a trend.